הדבר הזה שהוא מטורף בסדרי עולם, והם מנסים כאן להפעיל ראש ממשלה על שטויות.
This time you came for the festival not as a director, but as a producer. I wonder, how do you feel in this role?
I feel fine. I mean, the star of the show is the director, not the producer, but I was involved in the origin of this project, the BB Files, so I was delighted to be asked and delighted to come.
What made you want to produce the BB Files?
Well, the files themselves is what made me want to produce them. I mean, I got a message on Signal saying that there might be something of interest. Sometimes these messages are crank messages. In this case, it was a real one. What the source had was 1,000 hours of police interrogation videos involving the corruption case of Benjamin Netanyahu. And that, to me, was extremely interesting because he's such a pivotal figure in the world. And this time we could see behind the scenes of his stage-managed facade.
The film got a pretty strong reaction from the Israeli authorities. I wonder, does this kind of a reaction feels like a victory for a documentary filmmaker?
Well, it's interesting, the reaction. I mean, when you say Israeli authorities, when we premiered the film in Toronto, Netanyahu went to court to try to stop the film. Now, I don't know how he thought a court in Israel was going to stop a film in Toronto, but nevertheless, he tried. And indeed, he was shut down. But it was great publicity for us. But I think it showed two things. One, it showed how thin his skin is about any criticism. And two, it would lead ultimately to the pirating of the film in Israel. Many, many people, I think, in Israel were delighted to see the film because, of course, Netanyahu has many supporters, but also many people who hate him.
You're feeling comfortable working both with episodic series and the feature films. So I wonder, what creative opportunities does the episodic format gives you?
Well, sometimes it's the benefit of length. Sometimes you have a story that, if you get it right, will hold the audience's attention, but it's so intricate and so sometimes vast that you need a little bit more room to tell it. But I think the key thing always, as a filmmaker, to keep in mind is, are you engaging the audience every step of the way? Whether that's TikTok or a 4-part series, it's about matching the scope and intricacy of the story to the format.
I think that the internet really changed the game for the documentary filmmakers. And I wonder, do you feel that the streaming platforms are currently the best environment for the filmmakers?
No. I don't. I mean, they used to be. We've had an economic consolidation of streamers. There are fewer now, and the ones that remain are less interested in either formal innovation, authorship, and enthusiasm of the filmmakers, or controversial subjects. They want rather predictable, algorithm-based material that kind of feeds a hunger that has been created for the same thing over and over and over again. So I think at this moment, many, I won't say all, but many of the streamers have led to a kind of homogenization of documentaries, which is sad because this is a moment when the documentary is at its most explosive, at its most innovative. The storytelling is so powerful and unusual. It's a great moment for the art. It's not a great moment for the commerce or the distribution, but that may change.
In your films, you tackle such a wide range of topics. And because of that, I need to ask you about your preparation process. So what do you do before starting a new project?
The first thing I do is to figure out, is this a project I'm going to want to spend 18 months on? Does it have the kind of the depth and interest for me personally to want to, commit that kind of time? So that's the first thing. Then I often have an idea going in about the film and what it might be about, but I also am very willing, able, and eager to change my mind rather radically depending on what I discover. So the first step is a process of enormous discovery, digging deep, talking to all sorts of different people, looking at archive that's rare, that hasn't been seen, really trying to figure out all the angles, even as I have a hunch in my mind. But it's really that deep dive that's so important.
How do you go with selecting the topic you want to explore?
Sometimes I pick the topic, and sometimes the topic picks me. In other words, people come to me with films, and I think, as a pragmatic matter, you learn that it's often better to do the film that the funder wants to do rather than the film that you want to do. However, I would say that when you make that decision, you need to make that decision, or I need to make that decision, with the knowledge that the film I'm making is something I'm truly interested in and will result in something potent and powerful to say.
And except being a filmmaker, you're of course a film lover. And because of that, I'm curious, what film directors have had the biggest impact on your idea of cinema in general? Hard question, I know.
It's a tough question, and there are many. I mean, I can think of, and some nonfiction and some fiction. The Maysles brothers had a big impact on me. Marcel Ophuls had a big impact on me. And then, of course, I've been influenced by Louis Buñuel. That was what made me want to get into movies to begin with. I saw a film called Exterminating Angel. Also a film like Once Upon a Time in the West by Sergio Leone. Somebody called it the first Marxist Western. And one of the things I learned from that film was that when you work in a genre, and that was the Western, you can sometimes both engage and entertain people, even as you find ways of saying things that you might not be allowed to say otherwise.
Your upcoming project is a film about Elon Musk. I wonder, what are you trying to achieve by making this film?
I'll tell you when I get to the end.
Okay, thank you very much for your conversation.
Thank you so much.